welcome to this last segment of the 2016 Global Water Partnership Network meeting. We hope you've had an opportunity to see the other addresses before this, including that of our chair, Dr. Oyun Sanjasuren, as well as the UN Deputy Secretary General Yanni Leison, as well as our Executive Secretary here, Dr. Rudolf Cleveringa. And
thank you.
Just to, welcome. We'll be having an interview with you in just a minute. I just want to remind our listeners that you can participate now while we're live with either sending us something in the comments section of the Facebook. We have people in the room monitoring that, and in fact they may interrupt us with a question or comment. And they're also monitoring Twitter. And there's an email address which is being put into the comments section of our Facebook live segment here that you can write to as well if you want to use email. It's gwpnm@gwp.org. So as mentioned before, you have been able to contribute and you can continue to do so now and in the coming days. This will be uploaded to our website. We will send a link out to all the partners. So in effect, it's a meeting that can be a little, even maybe more participatory than a physical.
Well, let's hope so, because
yes,
we want to reach out to all of our networks,
exactly,
which maybe due to time constraints
exactly, there may be some
able to follow us right here and now.
Yeah, and hopefully you have a strong internet connection so that this is a clear signal for you. We are broadcasting from Stockholm, where the Global Secretariat of GWP is located. So let's maybe start with some questions that have come in even beforehand, as well as some others that people might have in mind based on your remarks. You mentioned, Rudolf, a lot about the 3,000 plus partners, but we know it's not about numbers. You mentioned quality. You said that we need to be concerned about growing in the quality of the partnership, not just the quantity.
Yeah, that's right.
So what does a high quality multi-stakeholder partnership look like?
Well,
just paint us a picture.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you for helping us here behind the cameras as well. And once more, welcome to our 3,000 plus partners who can be joining us today, but also in another opportunity later on when time permits. Now, indeed, quantity and quality, of course, go hand in hand. We need quantity, we need a critical mass. I mean, having too few partners spread all over the world, of course, doesn't get us anywhere. So quantity is important, and we continue to strive for a critical mass, as I said, but quality is as important. And for me, that is for you, the network, quality has several dimensions. I think one of the first dimensions is that the network that you are represents all of society. So here we're looking at the four typical segments of civil society, of academia, of government and private sector. But I think in spite of the high numbers that we have, there's scope to grow in outreach throughout the country, so not just capital-based, but also in the larger countries, make sure that people from the respective states, if it's a federal state or municipalities or community or whatever, are involved as well. Second, I think we can do better on gender. That is, we definitely need more women groups to be voicing their contributions to the network at country level, but also at regional and higher up levels. I think we would do well if we would get a better insight of the expertise that farmer unions and farmer organizations hold, groups that currently are not so strong represented.
So
land
really
and water governance.
So broadening it out. I mean, we know that we don't have as many private sector as we would like. You mentioned agriculture or the...
I think what we need definitely is to engage our network on finding out what the private sector at country level can bring to the table. Not so much use the network as a selling platform. I mean, that is not our intention. We are neutral after all, so we'd like to get this broader view. I think what we should also look into, other than the women groups and the farmers and the indigenous peoples and all those, what the UN calls Agenda 21 groups, we should look into how the network can rejuvenate itself, how it can re-dynamize itself. And I think that's where the quality lies.
Okay.
Quality in terms of a strong voice at national level processes that justify bringing this up, your voice bringing it up, to United Nations, Regional Economic Commission work in the several regions, such as in Latin America, Asia, Africa, Europe. And that's where I think quality comes to a balance with quantity.
Okay, and one of the places that you talked about revitalizing the network, you focused a bit on this SDG, Sustainable Development Goal Preparedness Facility, and really emphasizing strengthening the country level. But in that whole SDG, we have food and energy, we have what's called the nexus.
Correct.
There are cross-cutting issues like gender and youth, etc. And in GWP we have lots of similar themes and programmatic programs that we're building around these themes. What happens to IWRM in this?
Well, thanks.
Which is Integrated Water Resources Management, just to not use the acronym or overuse it.
I think this is a key question. A key question not only from you to us as network partners, but also a question of high relevance to the Global Water Partnership Organization that is servicing the network in their efforts, of course, to get integrated water resource management going as it can. That is, using the best practices, use the best management tools, use the institutional arrangements to, if you want, influence, shape national policies and practices that will lead together with other actors, so not just the network partners, but also partners that may be currently outside the immediate, say, boundaries of the network, together striving for water security. And once we have that water security, of course, then we get to higher level, if you want, objectives of the Agenda 2030, food security, poverty reduction, gender equality, and a lot of the other high level, say, objectives of the Sustainable Development Goals. So IWRM has never left us. We've never left IWRM. You have been working for 20 years now, congratulations, on integrated water resource management, and we want to make sure that that social capital is not only recognized for the agendas at country level, but is recognized also to set the international agendas, such as the high-level panel on water, such as the structures that the United Nations may set up to ensure that the voice, your voice as a multi-stakeholder platform, is heard with credibility, based on facts, based on impact that you have supported in your respective countries. So once more, thank you for that question. I think we really needed to bring this baby home, make sure that integrated water resources management is back where it belongs. And it's centerpiece.
Yeah, and it's right in the center of that SDG 6 water goal too. So it's on the global agenda. And as you say, we can thank the network for all the work they do.
I think this is, if you allow me.
And then we do have a question coming in. So we'll
I see people flagging.
Yeah, exactly. So
let me just make sure that everybody's on the same page here. We're trying to get on a similar page. Water is the enabler of the SDGs. We've heard our chair say that.
The enabler.
The enabler. Yeah. Without water throughout the SDGs, there is no SDGs. There's simply no chance that we'll ever get there. So, water is an enabler, currently in many settings a barrier. Now that's where the strength of the network is, that's where you are, where you can turn that challenge into an opportunity. Make water the enabler towards health, food, reducing poverty, as I said, empowering women, make sure that the environment is receiving sufficient attention, the urban setting gets it, the transboundary dimension gets it, all of these aspects that run straight across the SDGs. So thank you for that question.
Great. Let's see what, go ahead and tell us the question. And
So we have a question from Sultan Kuhn, who's asking, is there any specific program you plan in the near future to strengthen the transfer of best practices between the different regions?
Okay, very good. So just for the benefit of those who may have not heard that, what are we planning in terms of transferring best practice between the regions. I think this walked into our knowledge and learning issue in question brilliantly, and we can say we didn't even set it up.
Well, first of all, I think we need to acknowledge the question from Sultan Kung. Very important to bring out what is basically the silverware, our key asset of the network, and that's its expertise and knowledge. So, whereas maybe in the past the exchange of knowledge generated within country and within a region was confined to such regions, I think, Stephen, that particularly the Water and Climate Development Program, with its predecessors in Africa, have started to create, if you want to, a cross-regional, an inter-regional exchange. Now, of course, regions for us, the Global Water Partnership, there are 13. You're all familiar with them. They're in the lively colors that you will find in the Global Water Partnership in Action. Other organizations have bigger regions and they go continental, right? And I think we're going to be aligned with those efforts where we see exchange of knowledge of the partners within a continent, but also between continents. We've had experiences of the Caribbean and Western Africa. We've had experiences of Africa, wider Africa, if you want to, with Asia. Currently, straight to the point of your question, we are exploring with two big investments, big investors in Asia, what we call a learning deltas program, in which expertise from the network partners in Bangladesh will be shared with China, with the deltas of the Mekong, the Irrawaddy, and other major deltas, urban deltas mostly, under climate change stress, so that we can build up the resilience, so we can actually improve the capacity of the national and lower level governments to absorb the opportunities and make sure that they actually work. So thank you for that question.
So a recognition that we've done it before, but now perhaps a revitalized interest in it and a very practical program, which you've just pointed out in terms of this learning deltas in Asia.
Yeah, very hands-on,
and very country level as well.
Driven by local institutions.
And by a common concern, in this case, deltas, in a very, very specific environment.
That's correct. So,
good question. I think we even have another one. Go ahead.
From GWP Central and Eastern Europe, we have a question. Do you plan to increase the number of countries involved in the SDG preparedness facility?
Do we plan to increase the number of countries in GWP's SDG preparedness facility program?
Well, first of all, thanks for the question, colleagues in Central Europe. I think we need to explain to partners who may not be that familiar with these abbreviations. SDG, okay, we all know that, but PF, Preparedness Facility, this is, as you indicated earlier, an effort to focus the impact on an enabling environment at country level. So we have for now the intention to grow from our initial batch, the initial set of countries, which was 2 per region, to maybe over the next, say, 3 years, the remainder of the current strategy period, to a total of not exceeding 40 countries. Now, how that will be done is, of course, subject to consensual development of programs at country level. Your country water partnerships are there, voicing your interests and your capacities. It basically also means, no, we can't do everything everywhere. We, as I said in my earlier address, we need to focus on where we can make actually the biggest difference with the means at our disposal. And that the first means is you. The second means are the finances that we are able to mobilize with you, for you, and by you. So, clear-cut answer, there will be growth in the number of countries, but the growth will be limited and will be defined by the capacity of the countries to lead. It's not imposed, it is a consensual definition.
And we can be honest by saying, too, that future growth of that also depends a lot on from our donor partners, right, to be able to have the sufficient funds to be able to do that. So I think that's just another important thing to recognize.
Well,
Without being too bold about the appeal, but
no. I hear you loud and clear, and I think there's 3,000 partners,
Yeah.
plus 3,000 partners out there hearing us loud and clear. I think that there is international understanding that the SDGs, our framework for the next
yes.
decade, that the SDGs are growingly to be funded by domestic efforts
Okay.
as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why the country dimension, that is, you as network partners are so important, because only you can make this happen. Only you can put on the best business case of practices and policies, of knowledge and learning, and of course of a strong, diverse, rejuvenated network. That, for me, is the future, in which there is less of a comfort zone depending on what is currently a very strong set of donors to our water governance, to the integrated water resource management agenda, but that needs to grow. It's not that we don't want our current set of partners, finance partners, but we want them basically to be partners.
Yeah.
The finance needs to come more and more from the countries, from the region.
And you made that quite clear in your talk too, about one of the areas of the change agenda is sustainable financing and funding. So
Correct.
we have two more, I think,
Yes.
coming in. So let's take the first one.
So one is a follow-up question to this. What do you see as GWP's specific role in the implementation of the SDGs?
Okay, GWP. What is GWP's specific role in the implementation of the SDGs? I think you get a pretty thorough answer, but if you want to tease it out a bit.
Obviously, it wasn't good enough, otherwise the question would not have reappeared. I think our specific role is to bring stakeholders
Yeah,
together,
exactly.
to create the enabling conditions so that people have, without fear of being, say, taken for their views, without that fear, that in an informed way they come together on a platform basis, exchange not just views, but exchange those best practices, exchange ideas as how to push for the how the commitments at their respective country can be best attended. In other words, the network can assist the government in defining the priorities where the government is going to put its efforts, and then we complement those efforts, of course, through our programs, the inter-regional learning that we heard about, but also by partnering with strategic allies outside the immediate remit of the network. So all three together will be the specific role of the Global Water Partnership.
And it's something we've been doing, so we know how to do it. We just need to strengthen it, expand it, scale it up. The bringing together of multiple stakeholders, I think.
Now, if you allow me,
Yeah.
I mean, the key word here is scale.
Yeah.
We are not the World Bank. We don't intend to be the World Bank. But the World Bank and the similar investors are very keen to mobilize the network, to ensure that the investments are getting where they need to come in terms of effects. In other words, do the benefits go where the investors, and this is basically countries using those loans and grants, where these investors intend that the benefits go to. That's where the network has a role to play in making sure that there is a permanent information around what is happening in my county, what is happening in my river basin organization, what is happening maybe in my state or in my country. I think that is extremely important that we see that role for the network.
Okay, good. We've been going for nearly 20 minutes now, so we're not going to wrap up just yet, but let's take this other question that
Yeah,
came
so
in.
there are more two comments about gender,
Okay.
so I'll read them to you and then see if you can comment on them. So, as GWP plans and strategize on water and climate change are being drafted and operational plans being developed, this represents an opportune moment to ensure that gender dimensions of climate change are highlighted.
Okay.
And then gender differentiated impacts of climate change on water availability, quality and allocation need to be assessed, and social, economic and political inequalities heighten women's vulnerability to climate change need to be addressed.
Okay, so really questions around gender and GWP's role in that. We know we have a gender strategy that we launched a couple of years ago.
Only 2 years ago.
Only
Stephen,
2 years
only
ago.
2 years
That's
ago.
why I said a couple, but anyway.
Yeah.
So gender dimensions, gender differentiated impacts, just any comments on that?
First of all, my appreciation for the question, or the comments if you want to. I think gender needs to be not just mainstream, but it needs to be totally owned and embraced by and within the network. As I said earlier, in the diversity and the quality of the network, I think there's room for more women organizations, more organizations that foster gender elements in their particular cultural setting. Of course, we are very much aware, being a neutral platform, that in many of the countries where you operate, there are different appreciations, and we need to be aware of that, so we don't try the silver bullet. Typically, water and climate is the issue that affects men and women, but as we know, at household level, women are doubly affected. The caring and the coping take a lot of energy, take a lot of organizational efforts, and in certain communities, I think we can work harder to make sure that the respective authorities, the actors, the stakeholders, take more of a role in defining how to engage in strengthening particularly women's interests, women empowerment. Now, we can't do that all alone, so we need to rely not only you as partners, but there's specialized partners within the network, but also around it that we call strategic allies, right? So we like to really make sure that those organizations that hold very key, say, development and delivery capacities are matching up with us, teaming up with us, so that we can actually say, we'll try and open up the doors and create an enabling framework, and then those organizations that really know how to deliver the business, they can make sure that that business is done.
Yeah.
Now, you said on, or the comment was around impact, and again, taking up the issue that water is not just our integrated water resource management responsibility. It is, as I said earlier, an enabler. There's a strong gender dimension, of course, in the dedicated gender goal. But if you go to disaster risk reduction, if you go to environmental services, if you go to food, if you go to poverty, it's all totally loaded with gender dimension. And the more we are conscious of it, the more the network, you are able to get your head around it, make sure that this is a deliverable, the better the Global Water Partnership is recognized as a credible organization to deliver change.
Yeah, great. Before we go to the next one, I think that gender is a big cross-cutting issue for us. We also know that youth is, so perhaps this is an opportunity to address that. We also have a youth strategy that was launched just over a year ago, and we actually know a lot going on in that area. So maybe some comments about GWP youth involvement, being, as you said earlier, even offline, working with youth, not just for youth. So maybe you can say that better than I can.
No, I can't. You phrased it well. There's no need to repeat it. But I think from our contacts in the establishment of the Global Water Partnership Youth Strategy, which was done basically by youth organizations in consultation with youth organizations, either part of the network or specific organizations that are strong on youth. The idea has always been to not speak on behalf of youth. That is arrogant. That is beside the point. If there's anything we can do, it is to ensure that youth is sufficiently qualified to gain their space in society. So it's not ceding space, stepping out of the picture. So that's not the point. The point is to make sure that they have sufficient credibility, trust in themselves, a high level of acceptance. Now, we've worked, I hope I get this right this time, with the World Youth Parliament on Water. We've worked with the Water Youth Network. I think there's other organizations, such as in Pakistan, that are really going strong. We have super experience, even if the strategy is only 1 year old.
Yeah.
I think we've been doing youth work before. Super experiences in Central America, Guatemala, Nicaragua. Cameroon is going well. There's a competition in Africa going on with youth, which is a consequence of what, and this is thanks to France and Quebec. Last year, this means in Paris still.
Yeah, 2015 now.
Exactly.
Conference of the Parties on Climate Change.
The climate change big jamboree, which we now signed, and everybody's referred to that. That yielded a white book, done by youth on water and climate. And I'm happy that this white book is receiving continued support, and that it has yielded a competition program to invite youth organizations to boost their participation and presence in setting the agendas and delivering those agendas. Probably I've forgotten.
Well, we'll just mention GWP Med and Tunisia.
That's
and,
right.
Malawi.
Malawi was there.
So we might have missed, I think there were like 9 or more countries involved in this effort, so we may have not been able to list all of them, but nevertheless we know it's been quite a critical mass.
There is a critical mass of youth. I would like to see that such regions where the youth participation is not yet as strong as it could be. We have the example of Pakistan, but I think Asia is big enough to have some more initiatives.
For sure.
So it is my suggestion to you, network, that you engage with youth organizations within your country partnerships or regional networks, and if they're not there yet, do think about reaching out to them, because the Global Water Partnership needs youth to go into the future, to be fit for the future.
Yeah, super. Now, we're going to have to wrap this up soon. I mean, I'm sure some people need to go to work in one part of the world and maybe to go to bed in the other part of the world, but we'll take one more question. And as I say, you can always send in questions after this.
That's right.
Because we will answer them by email and even post it to our website on the page, particularly as it would benefit other partners to hear the answer. So this is just, if you will, one opportunity to contribute and participate, not the only one. So maybe let's take one more, and then we might just have, after this, we can have some wrap-up comments if you'd like.
Well, let's see how far we get.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's go.
Okay, so the last question will be, there are many conflicts surrounding pollution or misuse of water resources that directly affect communities. In several cases, the responsible party has economic power and is sanctioned by government. GWP tends to be embedded in government institutions. How do we address these situations?
Okay. So this is about how GWP can address situations where perhaps the water abuser is a powerful entity, and we very much, and favored perhaps by the government, and this questioner says that we are quite close to governments. So how do we walk that fine line in a sense? I know we've used the expression a neutral platform, but also to be one that, is an ambassador for the water resource itself.
Yeah, once more, it's good to have what could possibly be somewhat conflictual questions and not always go with the flow, with the status quo. So first of all, thank you for the question that puts somewhat on a pressure on us, including of course the network. First of all, I think we can state that 2/3 of the network as we know it of today, and we'll do an assessment in the course of the next couple of months. Currently we can say 2/3 of the network are not government institutions or represented by government institutions. That doesn't mean that there are countries where representatives of government form the bulk of the country partnership, or even at the regional level. So let's not belittle that. But it means that a broad network, a well-balanced network, would eventually take out the level of say, perception that we are basically running a governmental program. We are not. May I remind all of you of the very first words of our chair, Dr. Oyun, when she says, polluter pay principle doesn't go anymore. We've done that. And the earth is not any better for it. So we need to come to new models. on this particular one. Now, where there is quote unquote an abuse of power by those who actually allow for pollution to happen without sanctioning or without overcoming the consequences, basically downstream usually, and for future generations, I think this is exactly where a neutral platform can play its role. So in part, there's the watchdog role. What is happening in my neighborhood and what can I do about it? That is what you can do about it. Being aware is one thing. Sharing that awareness with other people is another thing. That's not always easy because not in all societies sharing that kind of information is appreciated. Certainly not by the ones who sit on the polluter, say, tap or side of the equation. But strength in numbers, strength in quality, bypassing, if you want, to national levels to go to a regional level where there is more neutrality, maybe also more political clout to hear, is one way forward. And once more, I think all the tricky issues around integrated water resource management, so not just managing the resource in some abstract form, but what is happening with my polluted source. We are working. I recall we're working on slow sand filters in Asia. We're working, of course, on protecting watersheds,
Sand mining in
ecosystem.
Sri Lanka as
Yeah,
well. So,
the swamp rehabilitation, so we get a better quality water, even if the evildoer is a company that people perceive to be the polluter.
Yeah.
And we find good signs and positive ones that many of those companies, not because of their corporate social responsibility, because of water in their value chain, they want to make sure for future generations that they are on board.
Yeah. And as our chair mentioned also, this is a challenge of governance, and GWP has never shied away from addressing governance issues, which invariably involve governments, politics, etc., power play. So we'll keep that commitment for sure.
Yeah.
How to improve the way a country manages its water resources.
Yeah, I hope I don't break any trademark agreements here, but water governance are us.
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Very good. Well, thank you. I think we're going to wrap it up now. I don't know if you just want to say any closing words to the network. You don't have to. We can sign off right now, but just in case.
Sounds like an invitation.
It's an invitation for a brief.
Okay, brief it shall be. So I would like to recap that the network is the key asset. That the key asset is there to secure, through the multiple locally, country level defined angles of reaching an improved water governance, that this is done through integrated water resource management. What is the key of our integrated water resources management? It's not just cross-sectoral, which is what you see often, energy and agriculture and cities and whatever, you know, but it's also inter-societal. So we bring in groups of people that speak with different, well, interests, if you want to, but all bring something to the table. And what's that something? Solutions. So I'd like to see that the Global Water Partnership from here till the end of the decade, 2030, of course, works on solutions. Now, we have within our midst also a technical committee that looks not at today and tomorrow, but at issues of the day after tomorrow. And I'm glad that they are on board with us, growingly seeking more contact with the network, with the country partners, as to find out what knowledge is really appreciated now and what knowledge may be needed tomorrow or the day after. I think the third point is that we can really capitalize on impact. For now we call them impact stories, but it will be an impact wave, as soon as we get to demonstrate to our municipal leaders, but also our country leaders, that we actually do make the difference. And we make the difference in enabling policies to reflect on water security. I think it's behind us here, the Water Secure World. That sounds very big, but we get there through water governance. And how do we get to water governance? Through a clear understanding of that integrated water resource management. So concluding from my side, I would invite you to go to your respective workplace, go to your partners in development at country level, regional level, your economic commissions, and question every time again what it is that you can bring to the table with solutions. And then we are absolutely excited to support you of putting those solutions to the practical test of, well, do they contribute to impact? And I'd like to congratulate our partners, all of you in the respective countries, in the respective institutions, and hope that you will not only stay with us, but that your proactivity will trigger others to do what they're supposed to do. It's not a matter of joining the network, it's a matter of making sure that things get done. And on those words, I think this year's contribution can be considered concluded. Next year,
I gave you the invitation. It was so well said.
Indeed.
So thank you. We've been interviewing Rudolf Cleveringa, our Executive Secretary of the Global Water Partnership. As I've said, this is all online. It's recorded. You can, and we will send a link out to the page where we will put this, and you will be able to watch it at any time. So if you weren't able to get to it this time, tell other partners, tell your colleagues, tell your friends, and send them the link and they can watch it.
and keep sending us
And you can
suggestions for
continue
improvement.
to keep participating in this meeting. Even though in a sense we're signing off now, the meeting goes on. So you have the email address,
The journey goes on.
The journey goes on, and you have, of course, Facebook. We look forward to hearing from you so that we can work together. Thank you so much to all of you.
Stephen.
Thank you, Rudolph.
Thank you.
Okay, all the best.